was wonderful that night with Porter, and knowing that Porter was such a big part of country music.
Picture a packed roadhouse lit by neon beer signs, the steel guitar wailing just enough to drown whispered regrets, and two outlaw buddies clinking glasses like nothing could ever shatter their harmony. Freeze that frame and imagine what invisible tremor could rip apart a bond soldered by endless miles, truck stop coffee, tally book secrets, and backstage laughter loud enough to rattle the rafters. Today we peel back the rhinestone veneer on country royalty to expose betrayals so jagged they still slice through jukebox speakers at closing time. Stay buckled, because each revelation stomps harder than a steel-toed boot on hardwood, and by the final downbeat, you might wonder whether any friendship can survive the spotlight's glare, the counting room ledger, and the whispered question every singer dreads: who's really writing the next verse of your life? Before the first heartbreak drops, remember, every rupture began as a laugh in some backstage lounge, a whispered pact over lukewarm coffee, a vow nobody expected to break. These aren't villain stories, just cautionary hymns about fame's heat lamp. Hold it too long and even the toughest vinyl warps. Tune your ears and brace for the sting. George Jones and Tammy Wynette once sounded like every hopeless romantic's dream, harmonizing tender lines about golden rings and forever homes. Yet behind that velvet curtain, the tour bus shook with slammed doors and shouted accusations. Jones's legendary bar tabs and disappearing acts drove Wynette to keep a hidden stash of keys so she could chase him down before the next show started. After 6 turbulent years, she filed for divorce, but the drama refused to leave the stage. She told reporters he had yanked her from her own driveway at gunpoint. He swore she invented the tale to win sympathy. Court battles over song royalties and custody of their duet catalog dragged on longer than any encore. Billboards kept their faces side by side even when they spoke only through lawyers, proof that a #1 single can linger long after love, trust, and small-town civility have vanished like smoke on a winter night. Dolly Parton walked on to Porter Wagoner's television stage wearing a smile as bright as the sequins on his signature nudie suit, and for 7 seasons they looked inseparable. But the moment she penned, "I will always love you" as a goodbye, the mentor felt the knife. Porter sued for $3 million, claiming he'd built her brand brick by glittering brick. Nashville's rumor mill spun tales of smashed gold records and dressing room shouting matches that rattled the studio lights. Dolly settled, writing him a check so hefty it could have bought every wig in her wardrobe. Yet the scar persisted. Years later, they shared a makeshift truce on stage at the Grand Ole Opry, voices blending like old times. But anyone watching noticed she kept one rhinestone heel planted an arm's length away. Sometimes the only way to keep singing is to turn heartbreak into harmony, even if the handshake never feels warm again. Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn sold so many duet albums that fans joked the pair should have shared a mailbox, yet trouble didn't bloom until death's paperwork arrived. When Conway passed in 1993, his estate began licensing posthumous duets that mixed unreleased vocals with modern instrumentation. Loretta's inner circle bristled, arguing the man nicknamed Twitty Bird would never have approved slick remixes. Lawyers wrangled over master tapes, percentages, and who held the moral right to speak for a voice now silent. Family gatherings once filled with fried chicken and guitars turned into subpoena drop-offs and icy nods across funeral aisles. Radio programmers begged for one last reunion single, but the call always went unanswered. In country music heaven they may still trade verses, yet here on earth, the estate fences remain locked, and the echo of a perfect harmony hangs frozen in legal limbo. The Outlaw Revolution roared to life inside Tom Paul Glazer's Nashville studio, a ramshackle haven where Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson could record without label suits breathing down their necks. At first it felt like a brotherhood fueled by midnight coffee, code words, and creative rebellion, but when wanted, the Outlaws sold 1 million copies, accountant ledgers grew fatter than the amplifiers. Tom Paul claimed unpaid rent, Waylon claimed cooked books. Arguments over who owed whom for tape reels and power bills turned fist-clenched. And one legend says Waylon carved his initials into the control room door, just to prove ownership. By the end of '77, Waylon yanked his gear. Tom Paul lost the studio, and the movement's flagship sank before it finished its second tour. They never shared another microphone, proving even rebels can't outrun the cold math of dollars, bruised egos, and friendships mortgaged to debt. When Merle Haggard welcomed David Allan Coe onto his tour, it felt like outlaw royalty knighting a wild court jester. Coe's shows, however, came with lyrics so explicit, radio stations needed smelling salts. One night, a festival promoter slipped Merle a note: "Lose Dave or lose the gig." Haggard, protective of his hard-won mainstream foothold, cornered Coe backstage and demanded the set list be cleaned up. Coe reportedly spat chewing tobacco on the floor and walked away humming the uncensored chorus. The next morning, Merle's bus rolled out without him. Interviews later found Haggard calling Coe's antics embarrassing, while Coe branded Merle a sellout in a bootleg cassette rant that circulated truck stops like contraband. No punches thrown, no contracts sued, just two highways forever diverging. Proof that even outlaws draw lines, and sometimes the wildest heart rides alone into the dawn. Willie Nelson once played bass in Ray Price's Cherokee Cowboys, learning stagecraft under the elder statesman's sharp Stetson brim. Decades later, Willie plugged in synthesizers, draped jazz chords over country waltzes, and called the experiment Stardust. When critics praised the genre-bending album, Price thundered on a radio call-in show that the new sound was, quote, "garbage that don't belong in my house." Willie answered without anger, but the next tour poster quietly dropped Ray's guest slot, and the two legends communicated only through polite award show nods and cool holiday cards signed, "All the best." Years passed, and a cancer diagnosis softened Price's tongue. He invited Willie to a hospice jam. The red-headed stranger arrived with a battered guitar and played crazy, eyes glistening, yet the old warmth never fully rekindled. Sometimes forgiveness pulls into the driveway on time, but friendship shows up late and finds the porch light burned out for good. Hank Williams Jr. has never met a microphone he couldn't shock, but in 2011 his televised barroom banter comparison of the sitting president to a notorious dictator crossed a line for many, including the Cash clan. Roseanne Cash tweeted that Bocephus had sullied her father's respectful legacy, and the entire family released a chilly statement distancing themselves. Hank doubled down on talk radio, claiming political correctness was strangling outlaw spirit, yet private friends confirmed he felt blindsided by the backlash from those he once called honorary cousins. Invitations to family picnics at the Cash farm vanished. Collaborative tribute concerts quietly erased his name. When the Man in Black's posthumous centennial rolled around, Junior mailed a floral arrangement and stayed home. Country music teaches that sin and redemption travel the same highway, but this stretch remains blocked by road cones of pride and unresolved sorrow. When Reba McEntire invited little-known Linda Davis to duet on Does He Love You, industry insiders praised her generosity. The record rocketed to #1, and at the Grammys, both women clutched matching trophies. Backstage, cameras caught Reba smiling, yet rumor says she felt a sting when reporters swarmed Davis first. Whispers about diva behavior spread. Reba allegedly vetoed Davis's solo slot on an upcoming arena tour. Davis supposedly declined a TV cameo that would have billed her beneath McEntire's name. Neither camp confirmed a thing, but fans noticed the powerhouse duo never cut another original track together. Years later, they shared a stage for a nostalgia awards show, voices still flawless, but Reba's hug resembled a quick handshake in disguise. In a town built on harmony, envy can hide quietly between perfect thirds and still bend the final chord sharp. Kenny Rogers and Dottie West sparkled like rhinestones when they belted Every Time Two Fools Collide, turning duet chemistry into box office gold overnight. But financing arena sets is trickier than matching vocal runs. Word leaked that Dottie covered personal expenses with tour advances, leaving Kenny's accountants chasing unpaid production bills. He confronted her on a tour bus, beard bristling, and warned that friendship couldn't survive numbers written in angry red ink. Dottie wept, promising repayment. Kenny forgave, but the next ledger told the same sad story. By 1980, the duo dissolved quietly. Kenny's solo star shot higher. Dottie's career faltered amid mounting debts that culminated in bankruptcy and a tragic car crash years later. Kenny spoke kindly at her memorial, yet listeners heard an undertone of melancholy, the lingering echo of what happens when money turns shared spotlight into an unforgiving searchlight of regret. Patsy Klein took Loretta Lynn under her wing like a sparrow needing shelter, teaching stagecraft, wardrobe tricks, and survival tips for a male-dominated circuit. After a plane crash silenced Patsy, Loretta immortalized their bond in songs and best-selling memoirs. Decades later, however, Klein's surviving relatives bristled that the story painted Patsy as a saint while glossing over certain late-night telephone tears and backstage quarrels. They threatened legal action over proposed biopic scenes, insisting Loretta was trading nostalgia for royalty checks. Publicly, Loretta shrugged, saying she just told the truth, honey, but privately she canceled a planned anniversary tribute album and stopped taking calls. Fans still crown the friendship among country's sweetest, yet in family archives, lawyers highlight every anecdote like a red ink copy editor, and unreleased duet tapes sit gathering dust, prisoners to memory's competing versions of the past. The 1975 Country Music Association Awards glittered with tuxedos and flashbulbs until Charlie Rich opened the Entertainer of the Year envelope, saw John Denver's name, and struck a match. The burning cardstock fluttered like an angry moth, televised coast to coast. Denver, watching via satellite, raised the trophy with an uncertain grin while millions witnessed a friendship incinerate in real time. Rich later claimed bourbon and painkillers clouded his judgment. Insiders whispered he felt Nashville was surrendering to pop gloss. Denver sent a private letter pleading for understanding and never received a reply. Radio programmers pulled their planned duet from rotation, fearing backlash. Years on, both men spoke kindly of each other in interviews, yet never crossed paths again. Sometimes the hottest flame isn't a headline romance. It's the spark of one artist lighting another's name on fire for the world to see. When teenage dynamo Tanya Tucker fell for seasoned superstar Glenn Campbell, tabloids invoked Shakespeare and soap operas in the same breath. Their duets dripped passion, but offstage, the romance veered toward demolition derby. Hotel walls allegedly vibrated with flying ashtrays and shouted accusations involving pills, coke, and late-night phone calls to ex-lovers. Tucker later said she felt like a kid trying to babysit a tornado, while Campbell lamented that love and fury walked arm in arm. After a final explosive backstage argument during a Las Vegas residency, management escorted Tucker to a separate elevator, and the couple never reunited. Decades later, she told a documentary crew that the affair was fire and glass shards, pretty in the light, deadly to hold. Campbell, battling memory loss, offered no rebuttal, leaving the last word to the survivor of a love song turned cautionary tale. Johnny Paycheck started as George Jones's bassist, harmonizing from the shadows until his rough-hewn baritone landed him solo stardom. Fame multiplied their bar tabs and bar fights in equal measure. One Missouri honky-tonk still displays the cracked mirror Paycheck allegedly headbutted after Jones refused to cover his gambling IOUs. The final straw came when Paycheck's manager claimed a larger share of a duet's royalties by faxing altered contracts to the label. Jones's camp threatened court, Paycheck threatened fists, and club owners booked them on separate weeks to avoid property damage and collateral headlines. Years later, as Paycheck served time for shooting a man in a bar dispute, Jones sent a brief letter urging repentance, but offering no cash for bail. The silence that followed proved some friendships end not with a gunshot's echo, but with the slow click of a locked cell door after midnight. Emmylou Harris credits Graham Parsons for teaching her to paint country with cosmic colors, yet when she tried to release a box set of their final motel room rehearsals, Parsons' estate slammed the door. Executors argued that Graham had sworn those rough tapes were never for public ears, and hinted the tracks exposed demons better left sleeping. Harris insisted the music was a love letter to fans and a lantern for future songwriters. Court filings flew, each side quoting faded diaries and handshake promises. Meanwhile, the tapes remained sealed in a climate-controlled vault, their harmony frozen in analog limbo. Harris went on to win Grammys, her silver hair glowing under stage lights, but whenever reporters asked about unreleased Parsons material, she offered a wistful smile and changed topics. Some duet partners lose the battle to ego. She lost hers to litigation and the unyielding guardians of a ghost's legacy. Barbara Mandrell and Janie Frick toured together in 1982, pushing a state-of-the-art light rig that required military-level coordination. Midway through the run, Fricka's microphone sputtered during her signature ballad, dying altogether on the high note. An irate sound engineer whispered to local crew that someone had dialed the input gain to 0 seconds before showtime. By morning, gossip pages screamed sabotage. Mandrell's camp denied foul play, but Fricka demanded independent techs moving forward and reportedly barred Barbara from her dressing room corridor. A co-headlining future collapsed before contracts were inked. Both singers kept public smiles, yet festival promoters noticed their trailers parked at opposite ends of fairgrounds for years afterward. No lawsuit, no apology, just silence, and the unspoken lesson that in an industry built on harmony, a single mute button can kill more than a song. It can erase a friendship forever. In the early 90s, Garth Brooks reinvented arena shows with flying harnesses, exploding lighting rigs, and ticket sales that rivaled rock giants. Traditionalist Travis Tritt watched from the wings and called it a circus wearing a cowboy hat. His blunt interviews rippled through Music Row, where whispers claim Garth felt the sting but chose diplomacy. He simply stopped inviting Tritt to charity softball games, guitar pulls, and VIP after-parties. When CMA organizers floated a duet to mend fences, Garth's team offered polite declines. Tritt fired back with a song mocking polished pop crossovers, and the détente iced over. Years later, photos surfaced of both men chatting politely at a Hall of Fame banquet. Yet sources present say they discussed only fishing, not music. Sometimes the biggest stage feud ends not with fireworks but a handshake so hollow you can hear echo inside the palm. Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings shared hotel Bibles, outlaws' prayers, and more than a few pill bottles, yet by the late 80s, their brotherhood wobbled. Cash, newly sober and preaching hard-won clarity, told a magazine Waylon needed to kick the daily coke whirlwind or risk a pine box. Waylon snarled that moral sermons belonged in church, not print. Recording sessions for the Highwaymen's second album felt like family dinner after an ugly Thanksgiving fight, professional but brittle. A planned world tour shrank to a handful of dates, with separate buses and no late-night jam circles. Waylon finally quit the white powder, but pride proved stronger than addiction. He rarely spoke to Cash beyond formal greetings. When June Carter phoned to announce Johnny's passing, Waylon's voice cracked, yet he skipped the funeral, telling friends the plane ride might break his heart beyond repair. Brotherhood sometimes ends in silence too loud to bear. 17 friendships, 17 fault lines splitting open beneath velvet curtains and spotlight shimmer prove that country music isn't just songs about heartbreak. It's a living laboratory where loyalty is tested like guitar strings, stretched one fret too far. Maybe you recognize echoes of your own busted alliances in these tales of lawsuits, hushed insults, and broken harmonies. Maybe you've learned that a tour bus holds two destinations, glory and regret, both reached faster than a pedal steel solo. So before you hit send on that fiery text or sign a contract scribbled on a bar napkin, ask yourself which verse of your story gets played when the lights dim. Drop your pick but never drop your guard, and let me know in the comments which betrayal left the deepest scar. Until next time, keep your ears open and your friendships tuned just a hair sharper than the rumors.